Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, everyone. In today's class, we're going to be looking at how do the letters in Arabic look when they are in the middle of a word. Now, what do we mean when we say in the middle of a word? We mean when a letter comes directly before it and directly after it. It doesn't literally mean that the letter is the middle letter of a word. What we mean is a letter comes directly before it and directly after it. Okay? So let's dive in. So we've got our standard template here again. And we're going to look at the first letter, which is, of course, the alif. So as you can see, the alif, it has slightly changed its shape, okay? It was just straight down before, but now it's got this little tail that's going backwards. Remember, in Arabic, we read from right to left. So technically, this tail is going backwards, okay? It's going to the letter that came before it. So if, for example, we write the ba, which we looked at how it appears at the start of a word in the previous lesson, we can write the ba like this, and we put the dot here. We know that this is the letter ba, and it attaches directly to the alif, okay? So when the alif is in the middle of a word, meaning what? A letter comes before it and a letter comes after it, then it attaches directly to the letter before it, and it does not attach directly to the letter after it, okay? It cannot attach to the letter that comes after, but it will attach to the letter before it, okay? If, of course, the letter permits. So the ba, because it joins with the letter that comes after it, then the alif can accept that connection, okay? So here we can see the alif with the letter ba joined with it before it and the lam coming after it, but not physically joined to it. Now, and then let's look at the three letters here, the ba, ta, and tha. So as you can see, the shape has slightly changed, okay? The shape has slightly changed. And what is this telling us? It's showing us that the ba, the ta, and the tha, it will attach from both sides, okay? They will attach from both sides, okay? So for example, we could have the letter Jim come before it. So the Jim, when it's at the start, looks like this, remember? With a little dot here. And then it connects directly to the ba. And then after the ba, we could have our favorite lam come after it, okay? We could have our letter lam come after it. So then what happens if we put some harakat on here? We can put a fatha on the jim, a dhamma on the ba, and a kasra on the lam. Okay, it's not a real word, not with these harakat anyway. But how would we pronounce this word? Jabuli. Jabuli. Okay, you can see these three letters have joined together with the letter ba in the middle. Okay, the letter ba, this is how it appears when it is in the middle, meaning it has a letter that comes before it and the letter that comes after it. And we said the same for the ta and the tha. It's got the same shape as the ba, okay? It's got this shape like this, but it has, or rather the ta has 2 dots above it and the tha has 3 dots above it. Let's look at the next 3 letters. We have the jim, ha, and kha. So when we looked at these letters at the start of a word, we just saw that it didn't have this part here. Remember, it didn't have this part here. It was just this shape like that, okay? So it's exactly the same as when it appears at the start, except for this little tail that comes at the beginning of the letter. And why is that tail at the beginning of the letters? It is so that it can attach to the word that, or rather the letter that came before it and the letter that comes after. The letter before and the letter after, the letter before it and the letter after it. Okay? So remember, how do we differentiate between these three letters? With this shape, it's got a dot beneath it if it's the jim. It's got no dot if it's the ha, and it has the dot, singular dot above it if it is the kha. Jameel. Okay. So let's move on to the next two. We have the dal and the dhal. Okay, dal and dhal. So the dal, we looked at it when it starts, or it's the first letter in a word, and we said that the letter that comes straight after it cannot physically attach to it. Okay, the letter that comes straight after these two letters cannot physically attach to it. However, the letter that precedes it can physically attach to it. For example, if we put the ba here, okay, it will physically attach to this letter. Okay, the ba will physically attach to the dal, and the same for the dhal as well. But if we wanted to, for example, put the mim after this, then it would not physically attach to this letter. Okay, the dal attaches to the letter before it in a word, but it does not attach to the letter after it in a word. Okay, Jameel. So again, the same for the dhal. It would attach to the letter before it, but not to the letter after it. Okay, Jameel. Let's have a look at the ra and zay. So these are similar to the dal and the dhal. When they are at the start of a word, they do not attach to the next letter, okay? But when they are in the middle of a word, meaning that a letter comes directly before it and directly after it, then it will physically attach to the letter before it, okay? It will physically attach to the letter before it, like the noon, okay? Like the letter noon, it will physically attach to it. And the same for the letter zay. If, for example, we had a meme come before it, then the meme will physically attach to it because it's before the zay. But as for the letter that comes after it, then it will not physically attach to it, okay? It will not physically attach to the letter, okay? Jameel. And then we have the sin and the shin. So again, these two, they look exactly the same as when they're at the start of a word. However, they've got the extra tail at the beginning, which lets us know that it can attach to the letter directly before it, and also it attaches to the letter directly after. And the same for the shin, it attaches directly to the letter before and after it. Okay, nice and straightforward, those two. And the sad and the dad, same thing. The sad looks exactly how it was when it's at the start of a word, except for it's got the little tail at the beginning, meaning it can attach to the letter before it, like the jim, like the letter jim, for example. Okay, and then it can attach to a letter that comes at the end of the word. Okay, the same is true for the dad. So the sad and the dad, they can have a letter that comes directly before it, attached to it, and directly after it, attached to it as well. Okay, if those letters permit. And then we have the ta and dha. So the ta and the dha, again, similar to the sad and dad. There's not really much changes here other than it's got the little tail at the start, and that's to indicate that it can attach to a letter before it. And of course, it attaches to a letter after it. Okay, and the same for the dha. It's got a tail at the front and back, meaning it will physically attach to a letter before and after it. So the ta and the dha. And then we have the ayn and the ghayn. Okay, so the ayn and the ghayn, they have slightly changed, okay? They've slightly changed, or they've changed quite a bit. The ayn, when it's at the start of a word, we said it looked like this, remember? And the ghayn, the same thing, it looks like this, but it has the dot. So what's happened here is it's actually like closed off this shape here. That bit's got closed off to allow a letter to join from the front and the back, okay? Letter join from the front and the back, all right? So for example, we can have the ba join at the front, and we can have a lam join at the end, okay? We have a lam join at the front, or rather a ba join at the front, and a lam, for example, join at the end. But of course, it could be any of the letters in the Arabic language. So as you saw, it changed slightly from its original shape, and it closed off that part of the ayn and that part of the ghayn so that it could allow letters from before it to be physically attached to it. Okay. Let's look at the last row here. So the fa, again, very similar to the letters we've looked at previously. Its only difference really is that it allows for a letter to be attached before it, okay? So a letter can attach before it in a word, and a letter can attach after it, okay? If the fa is in the middle of a word, meaning that a letter is directly before it and directly after it, then it can attach physically to the letter before and after it, okay? And the same for the qaf, with the only difference being that it has 2 dots above it instead of the 1 dot. The tha has a singular dot above it, and the qaf has 2 dots above it, okay? So it can attach from the front and the back. I just want to point your attention towards something. The ayn and the ghayn, they can look quite similar to the fa and the qaf, okay? So how can we really spot the difference between these two sets of letters? The fa and the qaf will be round, okay? They must be round when they are in the middle of a letter, okay? The fa will be round, and the qaf will also be round, okay? As for the ayn and the ghayn, then you can see that they will have this type of shape, okay? So let's just rub these two bits out here. The ghayn, it will be like this, all right? It won't be circular. Sometimes it can even be written like a triangle as well, okay? An upside down triangle. So either of these shapes can be accepted when it's the ayn and the ghayn, okay? When it's the ayn and the ghayn, either of these two shapes can be accepted. But if it's circular, then it's going to be the fa or the qaf, okay? And of course, the fa, it has a singular dot above it, and the qaf has 2 dots above it, all right? Jameel. Then we have the kaf. So the kaf looks the same as when it's at the beginning of a word, other than it has this little tail at the start, which allows it to connect to a letter before. And of course, it can still connect to a letter after it, okay? So again, we could just put the jim at the start, all right? And we can just put a lam at the end, okay? And then another quick test for you guys. What if I put a kasra here, a dhamma here, and a fatha on the lam? How would you pronounce this word? Have a little think. Jikula. Jikula. Okay? Jikula. Probably not a real word, but just some good practice. Okay? And then we've got the lam. The lam. So the lam here, it just adds another tail to the beginning of it so that it can attach to the letter before it. And of course, it's still got the tail at the end, so it can physically attach to the letter after it. Okay? And the meme should actually have a tail that goes before it. Okay? So there should be this little tail that comes at the start, okay? Which we didn't add, but it does have it, okay? It has the little tail here so that it can attach to a letter before it. And it has the tail, of course, after it, so it can attach to the letter after it, okay? So the only difference from when it's at the beginning of a word is that it has just the little tail before it, so it can attach to a letter before it, okay? For example, we could just put the ba here, okay? We can put a ba here, all right? And again, put a nice lam. The noon. The noon, we said, was the same as what? The ba, ta, tha, and the ya as well. They all have the same shape when they're at the beginning of a word, but they also have the same shape when they are in the middle of a word. Okay, they have the same shape when they are in the middle of a word. So it's just this shape that goes like this. But the noon, of course, has a dot above it, a singular dot above it. And it would attach from this point here to the letter before, and here to the letter that comes directly after it. And then we have the letter ha. The letter ha looks quite different from when it's at the beginning of a word. Remember, the ha, when it's at the beginning of a word, it looked more like this, okay? And it would attach to the next letter at this point here. However, when the ha comes in the middle of a word, meaning a letter comes before it and a letter comes directly after it, then it's written like this, okay? We can write it like that, okay? That's one way we can write it. So then a letter, for example, the ba will come before it and the lam will come after it, okay? So at this point here, it would connect to the letter before it, and this letter here, or rather this tail here, will connect to the letter after it. Okay, Jamil. The well. So the well is from those letters that we said cannot physically attach to the letter that comes after it, but it can physically attach to a letter that comes before it in a word. So when the well is in the middle of a word, meaning a letter comes before it and a letter comes after it, then it will physically attach to the letter before it, okay? Like having a ba here, and if we put the lam, then it will come like this, okay? It will not physically attach to it. No. And the ya, we said, is the same shape as the ta, ba, tha, and the nun. Okay? It's the same shape as those four letters, meaning that it will physically connect on this side and on this side. Okay? It's the same shape as those other four letters. However, it has two dots beneath it. That's how we can identify that this letter is the ya. Jamil jiddan. So we've looked at all of the letters now by themselves, and then we looked at all of the sounds that these letters make, and then how those sounds change depending on the harakat. And then we looked at how these letters look at the beginning of a word. And in today's class, we've looked at how these letters look when they are in the middle of a word, meaning a letter comes before it and after it. And inshallah, in the next class, we're going to look at how these letters appear when they are the last letter in a word, okay? Meaning a letter comes before it but no letter comes after it. So once you've understood this particular class, I want you to go to your Anki deck and unsuspend all of the cards which relate to how the letters look when they are in the middle of a word, okay? So all of the decks related to how the letters look when they are in the middle of a word, I want you to unsuspend all of those cards, okay? So again, as always, I will see you in the next one.